welcome to an Everyday Canines video. In this video I want to talk to you about the do's and don'ts with a tunnel, what you can do on a tunnel, what you shouldn't do. So when we're looking at a tunnel, the main thing to bear in mind is that the dog goes on one end and comes out the other end. And I know that sounds very straightforward, but what can potentially happen with some situation, now I've got obviously experienced agility dogs, very unlikely I'm going to get her to do this. What could potentially happen is your dog went in, can you go in, and then come out again. That would be incorrectly completing the tunnel. We would never ask our dog to do that in a competition. It's an incomplete way of doing it. If you were in a competition, they'd classify that as a refusal. The dog refused to do the obstacle correctly. Another way that you might get a situation where it was wrong, this is less, you'd be less worried about in training, it'd be a training error, but in a competition it'd be a problem, is where your dog misses the entry and runs past it. So I'm going to do this with Sparrow, but technically she won't be doing it wrong because she knows what a tunnel is. So if Sparrow was meant to go in that tunnel, instead she came here, Sparrow. Again, if that was on a course, in a competition, sit, wait, then that would be classified as a refusal. The dog refused the entrance of the tunnel. And that would earn you faults, which would then affect your placings in a competition. Sit. So yes, so in essence, we want our dogs to run one in one end and out the other. And I'm telling you these things partly because obviously you need to know it for competition, but also because occasionally you come across situations at fun dog clubs where perhaps doing display team activities or tricks or stuff, where they get the dog to do certain behaviours which in a competition would earn you faults or even an elimination, which means you're completely out of the competition. So you don't want to be training these even incidentally to your dog. So that's the big one. The dog goes in, it comes out. You can have situations where the dog gets halfway to the middle and comes out. We've all had that one. We go, hang on, where's my dog? Oh, yeah, they come out. The other one, which is obvious after the last video, is when we want the dog to take that end of the tunnel and they take the end we didn't want them to take. So in that instance, they took the wrong end of the tunnel when we didn't want them to. So they took the wrong end of the tunnel when it wasn't the right end of the tunnel to take. So supposing I want my dog to do that end of the tunnel, let's see if she'll do it with just be set. Pull. She got it wrong. Good girl. So imagine she did that in competition. Go Lee for me, good girl. If she did that in competition, that would obviously, because we did the tunnel completely the wrong way, the way the judge wanted us to do it, we would have eliminated ourselves. But that's just, another thing to bear in mind. Sit. Do you want to do the tunnel as it is? Tunnel, Spare. Good girl. So another thing that I've seen happen, she has done it, I don't think I'll get her to do it, and to be honest with you, I don't want to encourage her to do it. But it's where the dog, for whatever reason, sit, wait, for whatever reason, the dog runs along the top of the tunnel. Now you say to myself, what? Sparrow did this at a competition where we had an 8-metre straight tunnel and she decided it was better to run along the top than go through it. That was quite hilarious. The judge laughed. We earned 5 faults because it was a refusal because she didn't go into the tunnel. I think in hindsight it was because it was a dark tunnel on a sunny day and Sparrow does have a little bit of an eyesight issue. It's very mild. So I think she couldn't see the entrance, bless her heart. We've only ever done that once. So yeah, if your dog runs along the top, and you'd be surprised, it does happen. I've seen it also encouraged and trained by people, again, when doing tricks, when doing display team things, when doing things like they're not going to be competing with their dogs, so they do these things, it's just like a fun thing. But you don't want to encourage your dog to do that, because if they do that as a fun thing they've been rewarded for it, they're more likely to do it by accident and competition. The same applies if your dog jumped over the tunnel. That's considered a refusal as well, because you're just going to go in the tunnel, aren't you? Every time I point that way, they jump over it again. Can you come out? Refusal. because even if they were going past it, you're not supposed to do that. You're not supposed to take obstacles when you're not, even if you're hurdling them by accident. You're not supposed to do that. So that would be refusal. Could be elimination. Again, it can be a bit of grey area depending on where the judge is and what they decide. Another situation I had once was where Sparrow, again, it was a dark tunnel, and with her, dark tunnels are the problem. She came off a jump. She was meant to go in the tunnel, and she jumped on the tunnel. Didn't go run along, she just jumped on the tunnel and went, well, I don't see a tunnel entrance, where is it? Again, it was a dark tunnel, so that's something to bear in mind. There's another whole category of things is tunnel colour can affect the dog. One last thing that happened, and Swift did it, and it tends to happen, well, you can actually do it on something like this, it's where the dog, from the handler's perspective, it looks like the dog's gone through the tunnel, but it's like that optical illusion trick you do, like if you have an object and then you put if that's my object there, I put my hand and it looks like it's going into the object, but it's not. It's where the dog has completely bypassed the tunnel. But from the handler's perspective, they look like they've gone in, because the handler can't see the fact that when they went there, it wasn't actually through the tunnel. Go get it then. I had that happen on a course where I thought Swift had gone into the right end of the tunnel, and actually she'd gone all the way behind the tunnel, around the back, and came out. And I didn't see it because of the way the angle, it looked like to me that she'd gone in the tunnel. It was only when someone said, you know that dog didn't do the tunnel, don't you? And I went, no. And she actually had a habit of that. For a little while, we had a little bit of a habit of I go around tunnels rather than through them. We had to build up on our tunnel confidence. But those are your main do's and don'ts of a tunnel, where things can go wrong. I mean, you say this is such a straightforward exercise, but you'd be amazed how many ways this can go wrong. One final thing to bear in mind is if you did have multiple tunnels, we've discussed that a little bit before, occasionally what can happen is your dog chooses the wrong multiple tunnel, or if you're Sparrow and the tunnel is here that you're supposed to go into, and there happens to be another tunnel right over there, and you're told to go in the tunnel that's nearest, and you just go all the way over to that tunnel over there, do that tunnel and come out and go, hey, I did a tunnel. But these are all the lovely things you discover when you're doing agility, and the amount of hilarity that can come of a situation where you go, well, I have no idea why she did that, but she did it. And I think when you do agility, you ought to have a very good sense of humour and enjoy the fact that you're working with an animal that sometimes doesn't do things anywhere near what you wanted them to do. I hope that's all made sense, and I hope you'll have a lot of fun teaching tunnels. Tunnels are one of the things you can teach right from the start with puppies because they are low impact. Straight tunnels, that is. Straight short tunnels, wouldn't teach curves till they're older. As I say, I hope you've enjoyed this and that these videos have made sense to you, and if you have, you might want to subscribe to the YouTube channel, and you can check us out on Facebook and Instagram, and I hope to see you all again very, very soon.